Well, hi everyone, and a warm welcome back. Afraid I've been away quite a bit recently, and I'm going to try and make up for the videos that we've missed out on. Today we've got a small video to do, but before we get started on it, as usual, a quick thank you to the patrons of the channel. Your support is very much appreciated. And to everyone else, just a reminder, I am not a professional mechanic. I'm not here to give you advice on repairing your cars, nor am I qualified to give you advice on repairing your cars. The videos that I make are purely things that I do to my cars, and that's as far as I go. I'd strongly recommend, if you're going to do any work on your car, please seek professional advice first. So for today's video, we're going to be covering the internal door switches. Now, if you haven't had this problem yet, you're very, very lucky. I think just about every single one of these cars I've owned in the last 5 years has had the problems that we're going to talk about today. So what we're going to be looking at is the door switches here and also on the passenger door. The most common thing is where one of the switches fails to work in one direction or both directions. Now in this case, on this particular car, we've got a problem with the window going up and down on the passenger side. So if I press this button, it will not go up or down. Let's turn on the ignition, it might be a better demonstration. It'll go down, but going up, it often doesn't work. But if I go to this side, I can put it up fine. So that demonstrates that the switch on that side is most likely to be faulty. Now, if you have a case where both switches at the same time stop working, it is not likely, or it is less likely to be the switch. But if it is purely one on one side, it's almost certainly going to be the switch. And today we're going to look at all of the different switches that are used in these cars and how to dismantle them, take care of the problem, and save a fortune on replacing the switches. So with that said, let's have a look at what you need. Okay guys, it looks like, as far as I can tell, there are 4 different types of door switch used on the internal doors on these cars. Now that is dependent on which year, which model, whether it's turbo, non-turbo, SL, basic car. They range with 1 switch, 2 switch, 3 switches or 4 switches on each card. Each of them are put together slightly different, so I'm going to cover all 4 of them today on how to take them apart, clean them and put them back together. To remove the switch from the door card is relatively simple. In fact, it's extremely simple, but you will need to remove the door card from the door. Now that's covered in another video, so we're not going to use video time today covering that again. So if you dig out the video that says door card removal, I think it was called, get your door card, turn it upside down, and you will see the switch is just simply held in by 3 simple screws. So that's 1, 2, it's the 3 gold screws. Do not attempt to cut any of these other lugs or anything else, they're nothing to do with it. You just want the 3 screws to get the switch out. Now this is a door card out of the my car, the SL, which I showed you a minute ago with the window not working, so I'm hoping to rectify that problem today. So that's that switch out. Now before we go any further, as usual, we need a quick look at the tools you're likely to need to complete the job. First tool is your Phillips screwdriver. If you give me a second, I'll grab the rest. Right, so a few basic tools you're going to need. Now this isn't necessarily the exact tools you're going to want to use. This is just an idea of what you can use and what I use to complete the job. So if you've got some pick tools or little trim tools with a nice sharp edge to get down into little tiny cracks, that's perfect. You can use any of these little pick tools. They're all perfect for the job to get to where you need to get to. So a little selection of those will be a help. You may well choose to just use a couple of small screwdrivers. Chances are it'll work just as well. You're going to need a pair of tweezers because there's a lot of tiny little bits inside these switches. You're going to need to get hold of them, and if you've got fingers like me, you'll be dropping bits everywhere. Phillips screwdriver we've already used to get the switch out of the door card. an old brush of some sort. I'm using an old toothbrush, anything similar will do just to clean any muck out. Some switch cleaner, or I'm just going to use WD-40. Now you may well find if you spray switch cleaner into the switch, it may well solve the problem, but the chances are it's only going to be a temporary cure for the problem. And I also find when you start spraying lubricants into switches, often they attract muck that then builds up and it all gets gummed up, and then it's twice as much work to clean it all. So I prefer to just use the cleaner to get it initially clean, get some muck out, then wipe it all off and start afresh. A little bit of grease may well be needed. I'm just using general purpose grease, but any grease will be sufficient. It's just simply a tiny little spot where parts rub against each other. It just allows them to run smoothly. A super fine piece of wet and dry paper. I'm using 1500 grit. You only want something really fine. Do not attempt to use sandpaper. And a rag for general cleaning up. And that's pretty much all you're going to need. So we've had a look at the tools. Now let's get on with the switches. I'm going to start with switch number 1. So the first door switch that only has one switch incorporated into its case. It will come apart, it's relatively simple, and you can quite easily see how it's put together. If you look through the holes there, we've got 2 lugs on this side and 2 on the other side, and we've just got to release the pressure that's holding those in place. To do that, I'm going to use 2 of these trim tools. I've done this with other types, but these ones usually work quite well. I'm going to slip one down around about the center between the white part of the switch and the black part of the casing. And then I'm going to do the same on this side. Now this can be a bit of an awkward job. Luckily this is a much stronger plastic than Mitsubishi have used on some other parts of the cars. And generally speaking, I've never had any of these break while trying to get them apart. Then you need a third tool, and that's got to get down in that gap there. So if you start at the top, slide it round, and then you should be able to just lever that out, like so. Hopefully that will now completely release. If it won't, one of the lugs is still stuck. So we'll just try, there we go. Now, do you remember I said about bits dropping out? This is why I've chosen to use a nice white piece of paper so I can see where the bits go. It may also be worth using some sort of tray if you're worried about them rolling off or falling out. There was no need to remove this part of the switch if it's not broken at all at this point. However, I am now going to remove it for a different purpose that I'll show you in a minute. To remove the switch, fold it to one side, get another little trim tool and just gently lever under there, very gently, and just pop it off the little lug that's holding it. And now I'm going to break this one. Let's try the other side. Okay, that side's off.
The plastic on this one's getting too brittle.
Yeah,
and
there
old.
we go. Right, that's off. Okay, so you can straight away see the problem, why the switches have stopped working. We've got carbon and muck built up on the contacts all the way around, and that's all it is that stops these things working. So I'm going to start off by spraying just a little bit of WD-40 or any sort of switch cleaner, and then I'm going to get a toothbrush and just try and work as much of the muck out as I can. And straight away you can already see that starting to come up clean. Now I'm going to get a little piece of the wet and dry paper. Now the idea is not to sand away the top of the switch, it is purely to get the really compacted muck off. Just gently clean it, and as soon as that becomes clean, stop working on it. You're not looking for perfection because you don't want to wear the switch away too much. It's just to remove that high carbon build-up. And we'll try another switch. Watch your camera. I think just a tiny bit more off of that one should do it. Okay, I'm quite satisfied that will do. Now I'll grab the rag, just clean any surplus out, because that will attract muck and before long it'll all be gummed up again. Okay, now we have these contacts. Similar thing, spray a bit of contact cleaner, switch cleaner or WD-40, give them a good brush.
Would an ultrasonic cleaner do any help?
I'm sure it would, but I don't like to overcomplicate the job. Just want to keep it simple. This will work fine. That's one. That's two. Now that's the servicing part done, as quick and as easy as that. Now we just need to put it back together. Nothing complicated about this, and they've sort of given us tips in a way on how to put this back together. You'll notice on one side of these metal clips, metal switches, this side is slightly smaller than this side. That means it can only go one way round because the place it sits is smaller on one side to the other side. So getting that the right way round, that one drops in there. Small side, yep. That one in there. And here's what the tweezers are for. Like so. Now a little bit of grease, because these switches, the points here are going to be running along there constantly, and it just helps them to move a bit better if you just get a tiny spot of grease, no more than a tiny spot, and just either put it on the end there, or if you prefer you can put it in there, but that's up to you where you choose to put it. Now we've got to get this thing back together, and again Mitsubishi gave us a tip on which way round it is. So the center of the switch is on this side, and you can see inside there it's this end, so it'll go this way round. Keep it perfectly upright and slide your switch down on top, and you keep on pushing up while it's upside down like that until it clips into place. Now the reason I chose to take this off rather than leave it on is because now we can see down into that hole, and we can clearly see that both of those metal pieces stayed in place. Sometimes when you clip that back in, that sudden impact causes one of them to drop out of its position, and you don't know that if you've not got this off. So that's why I took this off, so we can see. Now again, this one Mitsubishi's given us a clue as to which way round it goes. It's rounded on this side and squared off on this side. So we've got rounded on this side, square on this side, so we know which way round it goes. Keep it central, don't pivot it one way or the other way. Keep it dead central as you go down, and then it clips into place. Easy. Now I'm not even going to bother testing this. I'm 100% confident that that is now repaired and ready for use. So that's switch number one done. Let's look at switch number two. So now we're on to the two switch door card switch. This is the one that you just see in my car, not working on the window up. It's a similar type of switch inside, but it's taken apart a bit differently. So we're going to start off with the 4 screws. Easy enough to do. Now with this particular type of switch, it's not a good idea to take these pieces off. These ones are fixed different to the other one. These are actually fixed from inside, so although you can easily pop the cover off, the rocker part is inside and very difficult to get out without risking breaking the plastic. So we're going to try and do this without taking the rocker part off. That clips back in, nice and easy. Right, now on the other side, we've got the lugs, the same as the other switch, still to take care of. But these ones are actually usually a bit easier. So again, I'm just going to use these simple trim tools. Get those located in there, one on each side. Actually, we can do one at a time, I think. Just lever that out slightly. And then we'll try and do the one on the other side. There we go. Now turn the switch back over, slide the bottom piece out with the parts still in. Okay, same as the other one, you'll see that there's a small side and a big side, so you can't get them round the wrong way. There's 4 of those. And you can see again why this one stopped working, because of the carbon build-up on there. It's on both sides. So the process for cleaning is exactly the same as switch number 1, and I'm running out of cleaner. Let's hope we've got enough for the job. It seems to remove a vast majority of it along with a brush. And then we'll dry all that out. Like so. And we've got 4 of these to do. If I put them on there, we'll try and do them all together. Or maybe we won't, we'll see. That one looks pretty clean. So does that one. So I won't bother with those, just these 2 here. And you can see how easily these clean up. There's no real work to them. As I said, whatever you do, do not go to a really rough sandpaper, because you're going to take the protective coatings off. Just gently work that carbon off and you're done. Now these ones will drop back into place. Just make sure I get it around the right way. I've not got the steadiest of hands. This way. And a little bit of grease again. And it is only a tiny spot of grease. Do not attempt to put too much on. It will not help anything. All that will happen is the grease will spread about and you risk getting it onto the switches, and then that will stop them working. So that's that. Now you need extra hands. To make sure you get it round the right way, you've got a little cutout on there. That goes to this piece here. Use 2 fingers, or however you prefer to do it, to keep those as central as possible. Don't have them rocketed to one side or the other. Gently lift this up, offer them up together while upside down. Move it all the way up as far as it'll go. And then click into place. Check your switches all work normally. 4 screws back in. Oh, a little tip with putting screws back into plastics. When you go to put it back in, if you go backwards first, you'll feel it click. When it clicks, then start turning in. What that will avoid doing is cutting a second thread, which damages the thread hole. This way you can reuse the screws and the plastic over and over again without cross-threading it. And also don't attempt to over tighten the screws. There's no real force required on this, just a very gentle nip and it's done. Switch number 2 complete. This is the one that will be going back in my car shortly, and we'll just do a quick test on it before we finish filming today. So that's number 2. Let's look at switch 3. Okay, the 3 switch. Sounds good, doesn't it? 3 switch is now moving into a completely different realm. We've gone from 2 very simple switches to a switch that becomes a lot more complicated. It has springs and all sorts of bits to fly out. So we're going to take this one nice and slowly. You need to be very careful with this one. It's going to be really easy to lose parts, and they're very critical parts. So with this one, we start off by simply removing this switch cover here. For that, you're just going to need a little prying tool. Put a finger or something in the way, otherwise it's going to fly off down the road. Okay, just simply lever underneath the cap under there, and that will lever off nice and easy. Now we remove the 4 screws. Now from this point, try to hold the switch all together in case anything flies out. Now we simply separate the top from the bottom. It is spring loaded, so it's going to want to come apart itself usually, but just watch nothing flies out. Keep it as upright as possible and go as slowly as possible, and we'll look at all the possible pieces to fly out one at a time. First of all, one you least expect. If I turn this over, we've got this part here which is spring loaded, and if you're not ready for it, that will fly out, and once that's gone, chances of you finding it again are pretty slim. So that's it on this side. Then on this side, we've got the same contacts as with the other one. And then finally is this one here. Now this is why you had to remove this cover first, otherwise this whole unit would have come out with the switch. And did you see what happened there? A spring just flew out of its position. Very easy to lose. And then also on this side, these contacts sometimes, not always, sometimes, oh God, what did I say about bits flying out? Okay, so I've got to go and look for some bits now. Sometimes that one will fly out. So we'll look at putting all those back together in a minute. I'm just going to find the pieces that flew out, I hope. Right, by some miracle, we just managed to find all of the parts that flew out, and I'm going to show you how to put it all back together in just a minute. We'll start first of all with a cleaning. Same process as before. However, this time we've got 2 additional switches here. This is for the automatic cutoff. Add those there. I'm sort of glad that happened in a way, because you get to see, even though I've done this many times, you get to see how easy it is to make a mistake and end up in a whole lot of trouble. It was 1,000,000 to 1 we just found those pieces, but I've had other switches where I've lost them. never to be found again. Okay, good cleanup, looking good. Okay, and then we've got these little pieces, same as before. Okay. That's good. Right, now we need to look at putting all this back together, and I'm going to start with this switch here. So to start off with, note the end of this has got 3 sides to it. One side sticks up, the other 2 stick outwards. Put your spring over the top, and you'll see there's a key in there to make sure it only goes one way round. So we slide that in there and hold it tightly. Now you want this part, that goes down on there. Hold that in place. Now we turn it over for this tiny little spring. Now this one I'm really going to need tweezers for. Goes this way round, and you see there's a little pin there to locate it on. I'm hoping you're able to see the detail. Twist that down and push it down. I hope you see the way. Let me find something smaller.
I've got it.
So the spring is located in this groove here and comes round the corner here. Do not let it go over that lip. Okay, it goes within the lip. Once that's in, you should be able to operate this switch, but hold on to the spring. Note that came out then, I wasn't ready for it. Flip it over, put that back in there, there we go. No, now it's come out on the other side. We might have to test this in the unit because I just can't hold it all at the same time. Come on, in you go. Yeah, if you've got really big clumsy fingers like me, this is not an easy job to do. This is one for the kids, I reckon. Okay, I'm not going to mess with that anymore. So now we've got to put this back into the slot. So you see the contacts are on this side to meet up with the contacts on this side. I've never known this switch to have any problem, probably because it's a very low current switch and doesn't actually get used that much. So we slide that down, and then at some point you're going to have to push these contacts in and let it continue the rest of the journey all the way down. Now it's down, we should be able to test it. In, out, in, out. So that one functions correctly now. Now we get to put these back on.
Just before you do you not need to clean between these contacts here?
I cleaned as good as I can. Bear in mind we can't actually take these out. All I could do was a bit of WD-40, a brush, and then I folded the wet and dry in half, and with it in half I run it between the contacts to clean them up a bit. That's the best I can do with those. Now these 2 little pieces, same as before, you've got one narrow side and one wide side. So that one will go in this way round, and this one goes in that way round, like so. Now the next bit, another bit we don't want to lose, the other bit with a spring. Now what I suggest you do with this is, if you get a little bit of grease and put that in that hole there, that's going to hold that contact in place for you, like so. And when we turn it up, it shouldn't drop out. Then of course a little bit of grease on these little tips here, like so, and now we're ready to go back together. It did actually have originally a little bit of grease in there as well, not that much. A little tiny spot in there, just to allow that mechanism to work properly. Okay, so now we're upside down, same as before. Try to keep your two switches level. Go down nice and slow. If you look through the holes, you can see it all line up. Get it as perfectly lined as you can. Now that should seat perfectly. If you have to force it at all, then something isn't seating right. It should all go in nice and easily and comfortably. Now of course it's all spring loaded now, so don't let go of it. Start getting your screws in. That's one. 2. 3. And 4. So, good, 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 and good. And then the final one, window lock switch. Just check your text is up the right way, and that simply presses down. You'll feel it click into place, and that all operates fine. That's switch number 3 done. Let's look at the final one. Switch number 4, undoubtedly the hardest one of the lot, but still perfectly serviceable at home. Same as before, we first of all pop off this one here. Just get a levering tool underneath, and it's a straightforward, usually pop up, like so. Then the 4 screws. And with 4 switches, you've got even more spring loading, so be careful to hold on to it. You don't want anything flying out. Now this switch is basically the same as a 3 switch one, just with the additional switch. So again, gently lever that off. Watch out for any springs and bits flying out. On the reverse side, we have this one here, same as the other one, spring loaded. Be ready for that one. That's a favourite one to lose bits off. And we also have this one, again a favourite one for bits to fly out, so hold on to it. I just caught that one then that was about to go on the back there.
That looks much more loaded than
the
other one did.
But that all appears to be okay, albeit a little bit bent up. I'm sure it shouldn't be like that. We shall see when we put it back together. No, that's definitely bent. Definitely bent, so we'll have to straighten that. That's a second fault found there that I was not expecting. I'll get some pliers on that in a minute and straighten that up. So we've got some extra contacts in this one. 1, 2,
they look mostly alright.
Yeah, they do. These ones, yeah, these ones aren't so good, are they?
Good.
Exactly the same process as before. Good old spray and clean. I'm going to run out of spray, I think. Oh, no, we might just make it. Brush first. Now, after doing this job, you're probably going to get another 10 or 20 years before you need to touch these switches again. So it's well worth taking the time to just, you know, do it properly. And if only one switch is faulty, still take them all out, do the whole lot. It saves doing the job twice. Another thing worth checking if you're into electrical stuff, it's worth perhaps getting out your magnifying glass and just check the printed circuit board on the back. See if there's any dry joints or fractures or anything. Just again a way of saving doing the job twice. Okay. Now these, that one is nice and clean pretty much. Just a little bit there. That's good. Oh, these look pretty nice. Okay, so they're all ready to go straight back in. It was just the contacts on this side that were bad. Now I'm just going to grab a pair of pliers, see if we can take care of this spring first. So we've taken that out straight. Hopefully that'll be okay now. Did you get that?
Just.
Okay, so now we'll try and get this back together. Now the sun's going down, I'm losing my vision as well.
That's good.
Okay, so that's in there.
Watch it doesn't ping out.
Yeah.
Remember to hold both sides.
It's exactly the same as a 3 one. Push that in there on that side, and then that will slide all the way down into position. Whoop. I think that's got to be my most used word on these videos. Whoops.
Said every home DIY,
Yeah.
self-doing person.
Okay. And as for the 3 switch one, I'm going to put a little bob of grease in there just to hold that. Save it flying out somewhere. Okay, also gives us free movement. And then we need to get a little bit of grease on each of these. 1, 2. 3, 4. There we go.
And then a small piece in the bottom of there, remember?
Oh yes. Thank you. Okay. Now, upside down. And as I said, if you look through the holes, you can check that everything's lined up as you go down, and then just at the last minute, you get all of those switches centered up, keep going down, and it will hopefully just drop into place without any problems, and then becomes a spring-loaded part. So just hold it all together while it's spring-loaded. Get yourself a couple of screws in. Because there was so many switches on this one, and I can't be sure that I got them all lined up correctly, before putting the other 2 screws in, I'm just going to do a quick test to make sure they all function correctly. Okay, now I'll put in the other 2 screws. And the window lock switch. Okay, all functioning fine. Now this should have a cover on the back here, the same as this one, but it's been misplaced. I'll have to try and find that before we put it all back on the shelf as a serviced part. Now just before we finish off, I'm going to put this switch back into my car just to check it all works fine, and to show that you can solve the problem with just 5 minutes of work. So give me a few minutes. I'm going to put this on the door card, put the door card back on the car because you've seen that in other videos, and then we'll do a quick test and hope that it works and I don't look a total idiot. I'll catch you in a minute. Okay guys, well, the sun's going down, it's getting cold, door card's back on, the moment of truth. There we go, beautiful, just as it should be. So if you have this problem, it could be your door locks as well that have the problem. Same switches, you've seen every single one of them now, how to strip it down, repair it, put it back together. This is going to save you hundreds of dollars if you take it to a local shop to do, because you can bet your life they're not going to repair the switches, they're going to want to sell you a new one. It's a DIY job that you can do at home, save some really serious money, and have a little bit of pride in your car as well. So for now, thanks for watching. I hope you've got something out of this video. Don't forget you can subscribe to this channel, and if you like it, give us a thumbs up, ring the bell, whatever, and you'll get automatic updates of future videos. And I think that's about it. I'll see you on the next video.